Hello, and welcome to the American Recut. My name is Nick.
And my name is Brendan. Today's film is The Lego Movie 2, directed by Mike Mitchell, writers Phil Lord and Christopher Miller and Matthew Fogel. In this film, it's been 5 years since everything was awesome, and the citizens are facing a huge new threat. Lego Duplo invaders from outer space, wrecking everything faster than they can rebuild.
Alright, that is our movie for today. Now, today, as I mentioned before, we do typically have a set of 5 categories, including the swing category. And today, I want to go ahead and add in music as our swing category.
Because, in case you haven't heard, this is a musical. Who knew?
And one thing that was not mentioned, but a lot of the musical work for the original songs was done by John LaJoy, who you may know from internet fame through his own YouTube channel or as Taco from The League. Let's go ahead and get into this. So, without spoilers, I think I'll go ahead and begin this time. I usually ask you to do it, but I feel like changing things up.
Go ahead. I
feel like this movie was solid, but it felt like it had some self-loathing behind it, if you know what I mean. This felt like a movie where, when everybody came in to make this movie, they knew that they were making the Lego Movie Part 2. Almost everything that's lampshaded or pointed out in this film is something where they're mocking themselves for doing it in a previous movie. The way they kind of lampoon their own song, the way that they lampoon their own characters, the way that a lot of the characters become shells of their former selves because they had to be lampshaded so hard. This felt like a reluctant movie, and I didn't like that feeling I got from it.
It definitely felt more reluctant, which is why it felt more generic in contrast to the previous movie, I felt. I had low expectations going into this movie because, one, it's a sequel. So, and two, it's a kid's movie. So, I mean, plot-wise and character-wise, I wasn't really expecting a whole lot, but it was still pretty underwhelming.
Unfortunately, I came into this with relatively high expectations because of the bar that the Lego Movie had set and the precedent that came from it with the previous movie, which was very subversive in a way. It had a lot of very clever jokes. It did a lot of things that you didn't expect for the premise. This one did exactly what you would expect for the premise. Alright, well, let's go ahead and get a little bit in depth here. First, let's start with the characters of the film. Now, of course, the film does follow the same characters from before. Emmett, Wildstyle, Unikitty, Batman,
Benny.
and so on.
Yeah.
Benny. But it does also introduce 2 new major characters. The one that was in a helmet...
General Mayhem?
General Mayhem. And Queen Watanabe. Or Queen Watanabe. They are introduced as this film's antagonists, and I would say overall, I like the new characters, and I felt like the older characters were kind of given a disservice.
I had no qualms with the characters. The characters were fine.
Oh, and Rex. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention Rex as well.
We forget our new character, Rex, also voiced by Chris Pratt. The characters were fine. The effects were fantastic, same as the last movie.
I think we're still on characters.
Oh.
But yeah, I felt like with the characters, the new characters did have some heart to them, and I found them fairly interesting as characters overall. Whereas the old characters, Batman, Benny, the pirate guy, they felt kind of underutilized. They were just background dressing a lot of times.
They were just there. They were, mostly just for ambiance.
In terms of effects, there's not much that can be said for this movie that wasn't said for the Lego Movie. It, of course, has excellent stop motion. It uses a mix of CGI with live stop motion. I don't know. Either way, it was used well. And, of course, it comes across looking silky smooth and clean every time. Though I do want to make one mention, because this movie uses it much more than the previous movie. The live-action scenes did not look great.
I'll agree, the live-action scenes I really did not care for at all.
There's one particular scene I want to talk about, which, not a spoiler, it's just a throwaway gag. But it's when the mother walks on a Lego, And it's okay. Like, the first time it gets kind of a half laugh, and then they do the joke 2 more times in a row.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. It's filmed very flat, very boring style. There's nothing special to say about the live scenes. If anything, they feel more lifeless than the Lego scenes.
That they do. Now, the gags that, if you could call them that occur in the live action scenes mostly invoke a half-hearted chuckle.
Oh, I should mention too for characters, Will Ferrell technically came back just to do a voiceover where he couldn't be bothered to appear on screen.
Yeah, he was there, as transient as he was.
He was in a recording studio somewhere. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the music of this film, because I feel like that is the standout in this film.
It is. Music similar to the previous movie I felt was pretty good. They came out with some new tracks that I kind of appreciate, but...
I liked the music in this movie quite a bit. As mentioned before, this was John LaJoy, and a lot of his signature is there in the music. You can feel the way that he lays out the tracks and the way that some of the beats flow very nicely. And of course, given that it's John LaJoy, a lot of focus is put into the lyrics of it, which I always appreciate in my songs for movies.
Yeah. No, the lyrics are, they're always absurd jabs at themselves or...
Well, a lot of the new songs that he was involved in, things like Everything Isn't Awesome, Not Evil, I Prefer, I Don't Like Gotham Men, and so on. These songs carry the movie for a lot of its charm, and I think it's worth putting a spotlight on them for how good they are.
I agree.
All right. In terms of themes for this movie, there's not much here. It's pretty razor thin. Very boilerplate, standard. Be nice to your sister. Work together instead of being jerks. Don't give in to pessimism, because optimism always works.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's very...
cut and dry.
It's there. And in terms of the story, we get a surprisingly basic story. This is one part where it's actually a criticism of the movie for me, is how basic and straightforward the story tends to be in this.
I agree with what you said earlier. There's definitely a reluctance when they started making this film.
Yeah, that's something where, with the story and the themes, you can feel how much the people involved in this production did not seem to want to be involved in this production.
Almost like it was forced, and you could definitely hear that forced tone in the movie.
I agree. Overall then, would you say you recommend seeing this movie in theaters?
Not in theaters, but I would recommend seeing it if you are a Lego fan like me.
I would say if you must see it in theaters for the charm of the previous movie, go there for primarily the musical tracks and a few of the cute lampshade moments. Don't go in there expecting a lot of the charm the previous movie had.
And if not, also go for maybe the nostalgic feel of the effects that you saw in the first movie.
But if you're feeling nostalgic, just watch the first one again. You'll get a much more satisfying story out of it. All right, well, this has been Nick.
And this has been Brendan.
Thanks for joining us on the American Recut. Feel free to join in on the pramble.